Well, good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we're just going to continue on for another video with the whole concept of gaslighting, because since this outbreak you'll probably notice that one of the biggest narratives of the last 20 or 30 years, 40 years, climate change has suddenly disappeared. So I'm going to make a bold prediction here, and that is that you will not be hearing from Greta Thunberg again in the near future, and you may see her in some kind of side situation like they did on CNN, where they got her to talk about the outbreak, but you know, that's basically it. That narrative is over now. The whole global warming thing is done. Now, do you remember these headlines? Here's a couple of headlines I'm going to put up for you from 2015. Interesting enough, one is from Forbes, and of course we were going to boil to death back in 2015, and whilst the main narrative of the outbreak has taken over the entire conversation, oh, what do we see here? Oh, the sun's gone into lockdown. How cute is that? Using the lockdown narrative to say that the sun, our sun, has gone into lockdown. And you know, most of us who have realized that temperatures go up and down on this planet, and yes, I do realize that in the late 70s to the 90s this planet was warming up, but overall we've been on a cooling trend. And so this whole narrative, which of course they've realized is not working. You know, even Greta could not stir people to make any kind of change or take this narrative any more seriously than it has been, because it's essentially been destroyed. And you know, I'm going to show you a chart here now. This is all of the climate prediction models, okay, for the last 20, 30 or so years. And of course the bottom line is you can see the observed temperatures, and they're nowhere near these models. Now, where have we seen this before? You know, science, at one time science really had at its center the search for truth. And when you search for truth, what happens is you start out with a premise, and you allow time to pass, and you add facts to that premise which change the premise, whether it's right or wrong, or slightly right or slightly wrong. And as we move forward, we close in on the truth. But truly, I mean, science is never closed. Science is never done. It's never over, because when you look back in history, how many things did we believe that were wrong, or partially wrong, or that we have changed to fit the new understanding of space and time, especially now that we've gotten into quantum physics. So they've realized that this is a poor narrative, and it was not being accepted by the public, and so we're going to sweep that under the carpet, and the sun's going into lockdown. And so now they're talking about things that, well, I posted a video years ago now, and this was by Heinrich Svenmark, The Great Cloud Mystery. And he was talking back then about how the solar rays and cosmic rays affect the cloud density and the cloud quantity on our planet. Now, clouds are our largest greenhouse gas on the planet, and they range from 60% coverage to around about 80-85% coverage. So when you drop the cloud cover down to 60-65%, we are in a warm period, and when you increase that to 85%, we're in an ice age, because it just blocks out so much sunlight coming onto the planet. So there is the cloud issue, and that is caused by cosmic rays. So the sun cools down at the same time, and as it cools down, the solar ray activity diminishes, and it allows more cosmic rays onto the planet's surface. Those cosmic rays increase the cloud cover, and we get cooler. The climate on this planet, I don't know if you ever think about this, but this planet is freaking huge. It's so big, it's unbelievable, certainly compared to our size. And the dynamics of weather on this planet, I would say, other than long-term trends, are pretty much unfathomable. There are so many dynamics taking place on this planet. Anyway, let's just flip over to these articles that I found, and we'll come back and I'll do a quick wrap-up. Okie dokie, here we go. This is from Greenpeace. Global warming issues and threats. There's no question that our planet is warming, but we can prevent a climate catastrophe. Only a small handful of companies are responsible for the majority of the greenhouse gas emissions causing global warming. In fact, just 90 fossil fuel companies account for almost 2/3 of carbon dioxide emissions since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Climate deniers, including our president and his administration, don't want to acknowledge these facts, but it's imperative that we stand together and demand change. So this is Forbes, May 12th, 2020. Fast forward, the sun is asleep, deep solar minimum feared as 2020 sees record-setting 100-day slump. While we on Earth suffer from an outbreak, our star, the sun, is having a lockdown all of its own. Spaceweather.com reports that already there have been 100 days in 2020 when our sun has displayed 0 sunspots. And ooh, look at this, the sun is blank, no sunspots. This is a sign that solar minimum is underway, reads Spaceweather.com. So far this year, the sun has been blank 76% of the time, at rates surpassed only once before in the space age. Last year, 2019, the sun was blank 77% of the time. 2 consecutive years of record-setting spotlessness adds up to a very deep solar minimum indeed. What does all of this mean? Here's everything you need to know about the sun, the solar cycle, and what a deep solar minimum means for us. What is a solar minimum? Just as a solar maximum sees many sunspots, the trough of solar minimum features 0 sunspots, and that's what's going on now. However, it's been continuing rather longer than expected, which means the sun is in the midst of a particularly deep solar minimum. And there you have it, 5 years apart from the Forbes magazine. June 19th, 2015, global warming will destroy the Earth in the end. And May 12th, 2020, the sun is asleep, deep solar minimum feared. Feared, oh my God, they've got to be scared, as 2020 sees record-setting 100-day slump. Okay, so here we have from the Tribune. Sun enters solar minimum. Is Earth headed for another little ice age? Cosmic rays, and this is what Heinrich Svenmark was talking about, high energy particles that move through space at the speed of light are intensifying as the sun enters a solar minimum, which could be a hazard to astronauts and produce more storms. So this has been known for quite a few years now. Heinrich Svenmark went through the whole theory of this, how it increases cloud cover and it affects earthquakes and volcanoes, volcanic activity. And here we have the ultimate in gaslighters, the New York Post. The sun has entered a lockdown period, but scientists dismiss apocalypse theories. So listen to how they contradict themselves in this one article from beginning to end. Our sun has gone into a lockdown with reduced solar activity as part of an 11-year cycle. The sun is currently in a period of solar minimum, meaning activity on its surface has fallen. Experts believe we are about to enter a deep sunshine recession. Oh dear, a deep sunshine recession. Astronomer Dr. Tony Phillips said solar minimum is underway and it's a deep one. Oh, it's a deep one, but they're not buying in to conspiracy theories. Sunspot count suggests it is one of the deepest of the past century. The sun's magnetic field has become weak, allowing extra cosmic rays to enter the solar system. Excessive cosmic rays pose a health hazard to astronauts and polar air travelers. They also affect the electrochemistry of Earth's upper atmosphere and may help trigger lightning. Despite false fears that this could play havoc with our weather systems, scientists say we won't say brutal cold, crop loss, famine or volcanic eruptions are linked to the solar minimum. There are no convincing links between solar activity, cosmic rays and climate variations, said Rasmus Bennested, a senior scientist at Norwegian Meteorological Institute. The global warming trend in the last decades cannot be explained in terms of solar activity because there has not been any trend in solar activity. Well, if that's the case, why are we going from a maximum in to a minimum. Is that not a trend? So they will try and contradict themselves in their own article and go from, oh, well, you know, it's a regular part of the 11-year cycle, but there's no trend, of course, and we won't say that it will cause crop loss and famine, but what are we seeing around the world? Crop loss and famine due to anomalous weather. Hail, rain, floods, droughts. Are you kidding me? So, yes, the narrative has changed, and here we are, all your mainstream media, and it's amazing how at the same time, look at the date on this, May 14th, 2020. So all in the space of 2 weeks, when the narrative has been taken over by the outbreak, all of a sudden they slide in these headlines. Oh, and here's a very interesting little disclaimer. A previous version of this article included misleading claims that the current solar minimum may be linked to extreme cold weather, crop loss, famine, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The scientific consensus disagrees with these claims and the article has been amended. Fancy that. All of the things that we've been predicting for a long time now, once we realized in the year 2000 that global warming had ended and that we were now re-entering a cooling period. And this is going to go on until around about 2030 to 2050. So this whole idea of gaslighting, I believe it's a very, very important issue because it's so subtle. And I will guarantee you that when things start to go back to normal and the news cycle starts to get back into other subjects, you'll find that we'll have a new narrative on the weather, and they will behave as if it was never any different. They won't talk about global warming at all. At all. It's off the agenda. I guarantee you. All we're going to hear now is rain and clouds and floods and poor farming conditions and food issues. Okay, so this is a form of gaslighting. This is a form of psychological terrorism because it is intended, deliberately intended, to drive you crazy, to make you feel that you're losing your mind, because we all did observe all of these headlines. Al Gore, Inconvenient Truth, Greenpeace, all of them, all stating the same narrative, and now all of a sudden it's changed. And so you are going to be wondering, if you know, unless you can get your head around this and go, wait a minute, I know what you were saying 5 years ago, and that's what you have to do. You have to stay strong, and you have to contradict these narratives, because you know, they suddenly start walking around and getting a life of their own, and the media is so powerful at creating images. Okay, and they can make you believe, as they say, they can make you believe that you're the one who is slipping mentally. And so don't fall into that trap. Trust the facts, trust your own memory, trust your belief in yourself and what you know to have taken place. Otherwise you'll fall into a situation, it's called cognitive dissonance, and when people are in a state of cognitive dissonance, they are very controllable, they're malleable. The mind just does not know what to do to resolve these two intractable positions, and so what this is actually doing is it's spinning your moral compass, and it is making you doubt the truth. And that is a very dangerous situation to be in, because when you doubt your own truth, then you are ready to be led along with someone else's truth that sounds reasonable. Okay, and that's how they present it to you. They will present a whole story. And of course, this is what happens, is they present a complete narrative. It doesn't leave much to think about. And you know, if you go back and rewatch now from this perspective, Al Gore's movie An Inconvenient Truth, you will see that it's all finished. All the thinking is done, all the calculation is done. All you got to do is swallow the pill and you've got it. Don't have to think for yourself. Don't do any of your own research, for goodness sake. Oh, it's all been done. These are experts. Well, we've had two pretty huge situations happen. one very recently, in fact it's ongoing with this outbreak, and the whole climate change narrative is being debunked by the statistics, by the observed facts. Trust those observed facts. And of course the reason this is all happening is because we have the whole funding thing backwards. You see, scientists could not get funding to study global cooling. They were to study all of the elements of global warming and the impact of humans on this planet. So of course they want to get the funding. So what are they looking for? And as it says in the Bible, seek and ye shall find. And that's what they found. And that's why we get these bizarre models coming up, because they're rigged to look for one particular anomaly or the other, not the truth. And so we're living in a distorted scientific world where these scientists, well, they've gone into cognitive dissonance. And so now you cannot trust the science, and that's a sad state of affairs. So observational science and quest for truth must always be taking place on this planet, or any other planet that we may happen to get ourselves out to, because if we don't start looking for the truth, well, you can see what's happened. Look at the distortions in the research going on today in our world. So our whole funding method for science must go back to a foundation of truth, because we have to survive on this planet. It might seem awful cozy right now, but we are still trying to survive as best we can on a planet which can certainly deal you some pretty bad hands. Okay, and until we do that, we are going to be in muddle after muddle after muddle, and we won't be able to prepare. We will not be able to prepare for the things coming down the track, because the answers that we're getting are so distorted. Anyway, please, if you've enjoyed this video, like, comment and subscribe below, and in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Take care. Bye.